Worlds, Matt Roloff reunites with son. Zach Roloff amid family tension. Matt Roloff and Zach Roloff are setting aside their differences. 1 year after clashing on the finale of Little People Big World, the father-son duo reunited for a holiday celebration with the rest of their family, including Zach's brothers, Jeremy Roloff and Jacob Roloff. Matt, 64, was seen wearing coordinating blue Christmas sweaters with his three sons, as well as ex-Amy Roloff's husband, Chris Merrick, while sitting on a couch in a recent video posted by Jacob's wife, Isabel Roloff. As Jeremy sat between the patriarch and his 35-year-old twin brother Zach, the group smiled for photos. "Yes, we got them matching sweaters," Isabel wrote on Instagram, December 26th. "They loved it, or hated it, can't tell." The reunion came after Zach skipped the family's Thanksgiving dinner in Oregon to take his and wife, Tori Roloff's 8-year-old son, Jackson, to a soccer tournament abroad. "A lot to be thankful for. Counting my many blessings," his dad Matt wrote on Instagram at the time, noting that his and Amy's 32-year-old daughter, Molly Roloff, had also missed the dinner since she was living out of state. "Thanks for all my daughter-in-laws for making this such a special Thanksgiving." And for Zach, it's been quite the emotional journey navigating his strained relationship with his dad, who he first fell out with in 2021 over a dispute about the family's Roloff Farms property. The pair continued to butt heads during filming the 25th season of their TLC show, with Zach sharing in the 2024 finale. There's not much of a relationship. Earlier this year, Zach's shared family tension was somewhat melting, though he and his dad still had not mended their fractured bond. "There's no relationship there," Zach's wife Tori noted in a June episode of their Raising Heights podcast. "But I do feel like the siblings, all of you, have kind of come around, which is nice." For more heartwarming TV reunions, read on .over. 25 years after The Nanny aired its final episode, Fran Drescher cheered on her on-screen mom Renee Taylor and her TV stepdaughter, Nicole Tom, as she watched their play, Dying Is No Excuse, in August 2025. The room was full. But no one spoke. 5 men sat side by side on a long couch, shoulders almost touching. They wore matching blue Christmas sweaters, bright, cheerful, almost ironic. A camera hovered in front of them. From the outside, it looked like a warm holiday moment. A father, his sons, a family together again. But inside that room, silence carried weight. Matt Roloff sat stiffly, his hands folded in his lap. His smile came easily for the camera, but not for the moment. Beside him sat Jeremy Roloff, carefully placed between his father and his twin brother, Zach. It wasn't accidental. Everyone knew it. Jeremy had always been the bridge, the one who tried to keep peace, the one who still believed things could be normal again. Zach Roloff sat on the other side, quiet, composed, distant, not angry, not defensive, just controlled. The kind of control that comes after you've already grieved something you know may never return. This was the first time in a long time that Matt and Zach had sat this close together. Not across a table. Not in separate rooms. Not avoiding eye contact. Side by side. And yet there was a space between them that no couch could close. Behind the camera, Jacob Roloff's wife, Isabel, laughed softly. She had picked out the sweaters. "Yes, we got them matching sweaters," she joked when she posted the video later. "They loved it, or hated it, can't tell." It was funny, but it was also true, because beneath the laughter was something far heavier than a holiday joke. This wasn't just Christmas. This was history. For years, fans of Little People, Big World had watched the Roloff family grow up on screen. They had seen birthdays, weddings, babies born, dreams built on farmland soil. But they had also watched something else. A slow fracture. A disagreement that turned into distance. Distance that turned into silence. Silence that turned into something no one quite knew how to fix. Matt Roloff wasn't just a father. He was the patriarch, the builder of Roloff Farms, the man who turned land into legacy. And Zach Roloff wasn't just a son. He was the one many believed would carry that legacy forward. Until he didn't. until something broke. And once it broke, it never fully healed. As the camera recorded that Christmas moment, no one mentioned the past. No one brought up arguments. No one talked about the farm. They smiled. They posed. They stayed still. But what wasn't said was louder than anything spoken. Because just weeks earlier, Zach hadn't even been there for Thanksgiving. He was thousands of miles away, traveling with his wife Tori and their son Jackson for a soccer tournament abroad. Some families would have taken that personally. No, Matt Roloff didn't, at least not publicly. Instead, he posted a photo and wrote, "A lot to be thankful for, counting my many blessings." He thanked his daughters-in-law. He mentioned that Molly was away too. Careful words, neutral tone. But fans noticed what he didn't say. He didn't mention Zach directly. And Zach didn't respond. That silence had become familiar. Because their tension didn't start with a holiday. It didn't start with a missed dinner. It started years earlier with land, control, expectations, and a dream that meant different things to two different men. A dream called Roloff Farms. By the time the TLC cameras captured this Christmas reunion, the damage had already been done. Zach had said it himself in the season 25 finale. There's not much of a relationship. Not angry, not dramatic, just honest. And honesty is sometimes harder to heal than rage. So this moment, 5 men in matching sweaters, wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't forgiveness. It was something quieter. 2 people choosing to be in the same room, without reopening wounds, a pause, a breath, a moment where no one won and no one lost. But to understand why this moment mattered so much, why fans saw hope in something so small, you have to go back. Back to 2021. Back to the conversation that changed everything. Back to the farm deal that didn't happen. Because that was the moment. Father and son stopped talking like family and started talking like strangers before it became a business dispute, before it became a headline, before it became silence. Roloff Farms was home. It was the place where Zach Roloff grew up, learning responsibility through routine. Pumpkin season mornings, dirt on his hands, tourists watching from behind fences. The farm wasn't just land. It was identity. For Matt Roloff, the farm represented decades of work-long days, financial risk, physical pain, and vision. For Zach, it represented something else, a future. For years, viewers believed the same thing, that Zach would one day take over Roloff Farms. He was the son who stayed close. The one deeply involved in farm life. The one whose children ran across the same fields he once had. It felt inevitable, until it wasn't. In 2021, the conversation finally happened. Not on camera, not in a family meeting, behind closed doors. A discussion about the future of the farm, who would own it, who would control it, and what it would cost. And that's where everything changed. Zach and his wife Tori had hoped for something simple. Not a handout, not a gift, just a deal that felt fair. But what Matt offered didn't feel like family. It felt like business. Numbers were discussed. Conditions were set. Expectations were made clear. To Matt, it was logical. This was his life's work. He had invested everything into the farm. To Zach, it felt like a wall. Not just financial, emotional. He didn't feel trusted. He didn't feel chosen. And for the first time, Zach realized something painful. The farm was never really his. It belonged to Matt, always had, and Matt wasn't ready to let go. The conversation ended without resolution. But it didn't end quietly. Zach left that discussion hurt. Tori left it frustrated. And Matt left it convinced he was being practical. No one walked away thinking they were wrong. And that's the most dangerous kind of conflict. Soon after, Zach and Tori made a decision that shocked fans. They moved, not across town, out of Oregon, away from Roloff Farms entirely. It wasn't just a change of address. It was a message, a boundary. And boundaries hurt people who aren't ready to accept them. Matt saw the move as rejection. Zach saw it as protection. And once the distance became physical, the emotional distance grew faster. Filming became awkward. Conversations became careful. What once felt natural now felt forced, and the cameras didn't miss it. Season after season, viewers watched the tension simmer. Small comments, side glances, long pauses. Then, finally, Zach said what everyone felt. There's not much of a relationship. Not shouted, not angry, just resigned. That sentence didn't come from a fight. It came from exhaustion. And Matt didn't argue. He didn't push back. He stayed quiet. Because deep down, he knew something had been lost. But neither of them knew how to fix it, without one of them giving up control. And neither was ready to do that. So the farm stayed standing. The legacy stayed uncertain. And the relationship stayed broken. Which brings us back to that couch, those sweaters. That's silence. Because when Zach walked into that Christmas gathering, he wasn't coming back to reclaim the farm. He wasn't coming to negotiate. He was coming as a son who had already accepted that some dreams don't come true. But acceptance doesn't mean peace. And peace doesn't come without understanding. To understand this story fully, you have to hear Zach's side, not as a TV character, but as a man, a husband, a father, someone who had to choose between a legacy and his family. For a long time, Zach Roloff didn't talk much about it. Not publicly, not loudly, not in the way people expected. He didn't rage on social media. He didn't give dramatic interviews. He didn't try to turn fans against his father. Instead, he did something quieter. He pulled back. Because when disappointment runs deep, sometimes silence feels safer than honesty. Zach had grown up believing in a future that felt almost promised, not spoken aloud, not written down, but understood. The farm was part of his story. Not just because he worked there, but because his life had been shaped by it. As a little person, Zach understood something early on. The world wasn't built with him in mind. The farm was different. It was a place where he didn't have to explain himself, where his height wasn't the first thing people saw, where he belonged. So when discussions about ownership began, Zach didn't come in thinking like a businessman. He came in thinking like a son. He thought about his children Jackson running through the same fields, playing on the same structures, growing up, grounded in the same rhythms. He thought about continuity. But what he felt in that conversation was distance. He felt measured, evaluated, as if he was applying for something rather than inheriting a legacy. And that hurt more than any number on a page. Zach later admitted that he left the discussion feeling small. Not physically, emotionally. Because the one person he hoped would say, "This is yours, I trust you," didn't. And once that trust felt broken, Zach's perspective shifted. He started asking different questions. What kind of example am I setting for my kids? Do I want them watching me fight for approval? Or do I want them seeing me choose peace? Those questions led to a decision that wasn't easy. Leaving Oregon meant leaving familiarity, leaving routine, leaving history. But staying meant something worse. Staying meant constant reminder. So Zach and Tori packed up their life and moved to Washington. For fans, it felt sudden. For Zach, it felt overdue. And yet, even then, he didn't cut ties completely. He still filmed, still showed up, still tried. But the emotional shift was permanent. Zach stopped hoping his father would change. And that, in many ways, was the moment he let go. Not angrily, not dramatically, but completely. He focused on his marriage, on his children, on building something separate from the farm, a life that didn't depend on Matt's approval. And when asked about the relationship later, his answer was simple. There's not much of a relationship. That sentence wasn't meant to punish. It was meant to protect, because disappointment only hurts when expectations remain. Zach had lowered his. And once you do that, you stop reaching. Which brings us back to that silence. Matt Roloff was sitting with something of his own. Something he didn't know how to name.